Hey guys, I hope you're having a great day or night or wherever you are studying for your anatomy test or just brushing up on the hip structures and movements. I'm coming to you live from my quarantine studio here at my home because I can't get into the anatomy lab or the biomechanics lab or my strength and conditioning lab or to my office. But we are going to dive right into the material here in these lecture slides. So if you've been following along, we've covered the bony landmarks and some of the background of the hip joint and the pelvic girdle. And now we're going to look at the movements that are specific to the hip. And there's some pretty unique things that the pelvic girdle can do. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Now here we see an anterior and posterior view of the pelvic girdle. You can see that this region I'm highlighting in red is where the sacroiliac joint is. This is the joint formed between a pelvic bone on one side and the sacrum in the middle, and then the other pelvic bone on the other side. Now this sacroiliac joint is bound together with strong ligaments that form rigid and yet slightly movable joints. So this sacroiliac joint, as well as the hip joint, are composed of large and heavy bones covered by thick, heavy muscles. So there's quite a lot of structure surrounding these joints. And the sacroiliac joint actually provides some minimal oscillating type movements. And it occurs during things like walking. Some motion might occur during squatting or kicking. And it's actually movement of the sacrum and the innominate bones on each other. Most body movements, most full body movements that we perform usually involve the entire pelvic girdle and hip joints to some degree working together. For instance, in walking, hip flexion and extension can occur along with pelvic girdle rotation, and we'll look at some different types of rotation. And it will rotate forward during hip flexion and backwards during hip extension. Jogging and running will result in faster movements and a greater range of movement. So if you can imagine, the sacrum is actually sometimes will move back and forth, forward tilt and backward tilt, or anterior and posterior tilt between the two innominate bones. Or you can have the two innominate bones moving anterior and posterior on the sacrum. Or sometimes you can have one innominate bone going this way and the other going this way. This way. So back and forth, like when you're walking or running, or if you're swinging into a kick. It's similar to the shoulder girdle repositioning so that you can move your humerus. There's a little bit of that repositioning with the innominate bones to move the acetabulum. So now here we see some of the bony and ligamentous architecture of this joint. It's one of the most mobile joints, the hip joint is, with the exception of the glenohumeral joint. So just remember that this deep acetabulum and the labrum provides good stability for this joint, and we have relatively few hip subluxations or dislocations, unlike the shoulder joint. Now surrounding this joint, there's an extremely strong and dense ligamentous capsule, which further adds to stability. Now there's some disagreement as to the exact possible range of movement capable in the average population, and you can see the wide degree of variability between, say, a male or a female in their hip mobility, or maybe a gymnast and a non-gymnast, or somebody who does yoga and someone who doesn't do yoga. So there's a pretty wide range, but on average we have about 130 degrees of flexion and 30 degrees of extension. So here we see flexion is when we're moving again in that sagittal plane, and the femur is coming towards the trunk, and extension is moving in that sagittal plane away from the trunk. And 35 degrees of abduction and 30 degrees of adduction. And again, this is going to be highly variable depending on various factors like the morphology of your hip joint and your the neck of your femur and how deep your acetabulum is and maybe how tight your adductors are. All of those things can affect these ranges of motion. And then here we have internal and external rotation, 45 degrees for internal and 50 degrees for external. Just remember as you're measuring these, if the knee is flexed, then the foot will move in the opposite direction as the midline of the femur as it's rotating. So for instance, in this first picture, if we are going to swing this way and the foot is moving laterally, that's still internal rotation because the midline of the femur, which is pointed here, is going to move that way and be pointed towards the midline as you internally rotate. Now the pelvic girdle can move back and forth within all three planes of motion for a total of 6 different movements. And this gets a little bit complex because now I'm not talking about the movement of the innominate bones on the sacrum. Now I'm talking about the whole pelvic girdle as a unit. It can move forward, anteriorly, backwards, posteriorly. It can move in the transverse plane, and it can also move in the frontal plane. Now all of these rotational movements are the result of motion at one or more locations. Okay? The right hip, the left hip, and the lumbar spine. Okay, so here's a table that charts out all of the pelvic rotation movements and then each of their component movements at the lumbar spine, right hip, and left hip. Now after I explain these, I'm going to attempt to demonstrate them, and I'll probably look silly doing it, but I encourage you to do it along with me, wherever you are. In your living room, at the library, or maybe out at a park if you're allowed to and your city's not under curfew right now or quarantined. Go ahead and practice these because it will help you to ingrain it kinesthetically. Okay, here we go. We're going to talk through it and move through it at the same time. Okay, I don't know if you can see my face or if it's in the screen, but just go along with me. So the first one, anterior pelvic rotation. So if we imagine our pelvis like a cup full of water, and if that water were to spill when we rotate our pelvis, it's going to spill in the direction of the movement. So anterior rotation, that water will spill anteriorly. So it's comprised of lumbar extension. So go ahead and extend your lumbar spine like this, and then flexion at the right and the left hips. So if I flex my hips and extend at my spine, look at what my pelvis is doing. It's like you're sticking your butt out, okay? So maybe a good visual is if there's a wall behind you and you're trying to touch your butt to the wall without moving your feet. Or let's say that you go to the club and you're trying to shoot vibes to the guy or girl behind you. Boom, there you go. You're in anterior pelvic rotation. Now posterior rotation is the opposite of that. If we now flex at the lumbar spine and extend at the hips, what's going to happen is your pelvis is going to tuck under you, and now that water, if it was a cup, would spill posteriorly. Okay, so here's anterior and then posterior rotation. I'm not going to make any comment about what posterior rotation is analogous to. You guys can, I'm sure, think of that. Okay, right lateral rotation. So right lateral rotation is comprised of left lateral flexion, abduction at the right hip, and adduction at the left hip. Okay, so to achieve all three of these things, instead of laterally flexing to the left like this, what I'm going to do is instead raise my left foot up so that my pelvis is actually raising. I'm hiking my left hip. It's like a hip hike. Okay, and by doing that, if I keep my femurs pointed straight down, then this left femur will be slightly adducted and this right one will be slightly abducted. And then about the lumbar spine, now I'm curving to the left. Okay, so that's right lateral rotation, and you can remember that because the cup is spilling the water to the left. Left lateral rotation is the opposite, so I'm hiking my right hip up to spill the water to the left. Okay, the next one is right transverse rotation. So I'm in the transverse plane, and if I'm rotating to the right, like this, then I'm going through left lumbar rotation, okay, but my chest is pointing straight ahead, not this way, but straight ahead, and it's my pelvic girdle that's moving, so left lumbar rotation and external rotation on the left hip, internal rotation on the right hip. And the exact opposite for left transverse rotation. Okay, so to go through those again really quick, anterior rotation, posterior rotation, right lateral flexion, left lateral flexion, right transverse rotation, and left transverse rotation. Okay, and those are the 6 movements. Oh, and if you practice those enough, not only will you learn the movements, but you'll also become better at dancing and maybe other things too. Okay, so this slide is just superimposing a steering wheel instead of a cup over the pelvic girdle, and it's showing you anterior and posterior pelvic rotation. So if we identify, here's the anterior side, here's the posterior side, and if we were to tilt the pelvis this way into anterior rotation, that's going to be pushing your butt back against the wall, like we talked about. And if this was a cup of water, it's going to tilt the cup and spill the water this way. All right, and the opposite for posterior rotation. It would spill the water this way and push your pubic symphysis anteriorly. Okay, and here we are looking at the pelvic girdle from the posterior aspect. And you can tell because you can see that the sacrum is actually behind those innominate bones from this angle. So if we were to go through left lateral pelvic rotation, then the water is going to be spilling to this left side, right? And that means the right side has to go up. And that means we will be going through at the spine, we'll be going through right lateral flexion to accomplish that. Adduction, that's supposed to be an arrow, adduction at that femur, and abduction at this femur. And the transverse movements, this is from a superior view looking down on the pelvic girdle. And as we rotate that pelvis to the left, that's left transverse pelvic rotation, and to the right is right transverse pelvic rotation. Okay, so here are these movements in action. We've got hip flexion and hip extension. Notice that the model here, though, has accompanied the movements with some movement at the knee. She's doing some knee flexion at the top and some knee flexion at the bottom as well. Hip abduction and adduction. And remember that we can move in adduction past the midline. It doesn't end when you get back to anatomical position. Internal and external rotation. And remember that we have this foot moving the opposite direction of the rotation. So up here at the top, the foot's moving medially, but the hip is rotating laterally or externally. And same thing down here, the foot now is moving laterally, but the femur is rotating medially or internally. Now, just like the shoulder, we can have movement in a diagonal plane. So diagonal abduction and adduction, really it's a combination of flexion and extension and adduction and abduction all together. This happens frequently in many movements. The most obvious one is, say, kicking a soccer ball, because you really have to open up at the hips. You don't stay in a sagittal plane to really get a lot of power behind that ball, so you move through this diagonal plane of motion. Now we also have hip horizontal abduction and adduction. I don't have a video for it, but well, I guess I could demo it. I've already done that in this video. So just like with your humerus, right? Horizontal abduction and adduction happen here in the transverse plane. Same thing with the hip, horizontal abduction and horizontal adduction, okay? Horizontal abduction, horizontal adduction. You might see people doing those movements, say in hurdle drills or sprint drills. That's really the only time I do those movements. Or maybe if you're doing some kind of agility work or something like that. Okay, and now we've already covered these, but here we have some pictures of anterior and posterior pelvic rotation. And we can see here with the anterior pelvic rotation, these are sometimes also called pelvic tilt as well. We'll call them pelvic rotation because we're talking about movement and not a static position. So here we see the lumbar spine going through extension, and I'll draw a triangle to show the hips. flexion here at the femur, and here it's the opposite. Extension at the hip and flexion at the lumbar spine to accomplish that posterior pelvic rotation. Lateral pelvic rotation. All right, so here she is into right lateral flexion at the spine, and her right hip is adducted and her left hip is abducted. And so she is in left lateral pelvic rotation because that water would spill out of that left side. And then finally, transverse rotation. Here the model is rotating that way to her right side. And so she's going to have left lumbar rotation and external rotation at that femur and internal rotation at this femur. Now that wraps up the movements of the hip joint and the pelvic girdle. If you have any questions about any of the movements that we've covered, I would love to answer them down below in the comments. Now the next video is going to detail the muscles that cause these actions in the hip and at the pelvic girdle, so be sure to check that out on the left side of your screen. And if you want to learn more about any of the other regions of our body, check out the structural kinesiology playlist on the right. I'm Dr. Goodin, and I'll see you in the next video.